Thank you for listening to the Tattness podcast on the Tattness Co. Network.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. A Mercedes kind of sentiment, luxury, and trust in me to honor the free we all should be. It seems my sundial burst into yin and yang, right and left me.
What's up, y'all? Once again, your boy Tattness is sitting down with an awesome guest. I've got Kenny Lee Lewis. He was the guitarist for the Steve Miller Band. And for anybody too young, they think they don't know who that is. Come on, man. Shit like Fly Like an Eagle, songs like that, you have to know who it is, bro. You've heard their work, whether you know it or not. This guy was fascinating, and we kind of bust each other's balls a little bit and talk about, how I got to where I'm at, and my crazy story, and how he got to where he's at, and how he just doesn't seem to give himself enough credit, and I think you'll dig this. The guy's really interesting. Check it out.
All right, what's up, brother?
I'm good, man. What's up, Keith? You're hanging out there in Nova Scotia.
Yeah, dude. It's
Yeah.
it's great that we kind of got all the bullshit out of the way, because it's like,
Wow.
we know our parameters.
Yeah, I love Nova Scotia. I mean, I've even been out to St. John's, all the way up there, and Newfoundland, and I bit the herring and drank the fucking booze or whatever they do all up there. They don't even accept you unless you bite a fish.
Is that not weird, though? I went to a Newfie when I lived in Niagara Falls area. I went to a Newfie wedding, and they had them drink the fucking screech out of a boot.
Screech, that's what it was called.
Yeah, the Newfie screech, and then kiss a fucking fish. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? I'm from Toronto. I don't understand none of this bullshit.
Well, fortunately, I'm a fisherman, and I'm around fish a lot, and I like to eat fish. So for me, it wasn't a big challenge. But, taking the big hit of booze was because, I've been kind of taking it easy on the sauce lately.
I mean, I love eating fish, but I mean, to kiss one on the fucking face, I know I'm not going to call it tomorrow, so then I feel guilty. You know what I mean?
Right.
When it gets upset. It was so bizarre to me. It was so different and so unique that I was like, okay, that's their tradition. I don't get it, but I'm part Irish. I guess I should get it because Newfies aren't far off.
Nice. I do too. I was in Dublin about 2 years ago, and I've got Irish, my wife too. We come to find out that Dublin is a Viking word, and it means Blackpool. And it was actually named by the Vikings because they kind of started Dublin in a way. They conquered it and made it kind of cool, and eventually they left, but that's where they left it. But the Irish there are some beautiful people. It's a whole real bunch of mix of different things. Different than England, completely different.
Yeah, they've been really good to me. That's for damn sure. I mean, I made my name for myself in MMA, getting punched in the face for a living, and I was kind of like, I can't do this forever. Now we know more about like CTE and concussions and all the side effects and whatever. I was like, I don't want to do this shit forever because eventually it catches up to you. Look at Muhammad Ali. It's not good.
Look at him.
Right. Like in his last, years, it wasn't good. And I was like, okay, well, I don't want to do this shit to that level. I made my money. I made my name for myself and whatever. Then like literally a year ago this month, I did this show. And I honestly thought if I have 100 listeners that give a shit still about what I do, I'll be grateful. And I currently over 1.5 mil that I know of.
Nice.
Like, holy shit. Like people care. So I think,
Yeah,
okay.
that's kind of the humility that I'm coming from right now because I'm getting ready to work on my YouTube channel, and I'm gonna try to see if I can attract subscribers. And I don't know. You just kind of have to put yourself out there and see if they show up.
That's exactly what it was. So when I started out, I was literally just bullshitting. I came up with all this shit that was funny to me. That we had fun with it, and I was like, who cares? Nobody's gonna listen to this shit, and if they do, they're like, this guy's an idiot. That's funny. And then I realized I have like hundreds of thousands of listeners. I'm like, oh, there's a responsibility to this now. So then I switched it up till I start talking about like real things where people should really think about it and then it hits like 1.5 million. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start getting guests and friends of mine, because I'm friends with so many people from like, the horror industry, like, horror movies and shit like that. So I had like Ken Sagos from Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and 4 on. I had the production designer from those movies and like all these other movies. And, for October, I got CJ Graham that played Jason Voorhees and shit. And I was like, I'm just going to keep going and going and going and getting everybody that I can, and really talk about some things, not just their careers. Like, we could do that, and I love that. But, get their take on stuff that really matters and really speak to people. Because,
Right.
like, if people are listening, you have a responsibility to them to some level to kind of address the things that they go through on a day-to-day basis. And, so we've talked about depression and anxiety and mental illness and all that crazy shit. And, just kind of motivational things too, of like, I've talked to so many people where it got to a point where I said, there's just this level of people, like, because I would do an Ask Me Anything show where fans could ask literally anything they want. And you get a lot of really crazy messages where it's like, it's not a question, but you said something one time that saved my life. It stopped me from committing suicide. And I was like, holy shit, that's heavy.
Well, yeah, that's when you become the vessel and you don't even know you're being used for supernatural purposes, and everything just comes through, but you really are not in control of it.
Right.
You're just a vessel that it moves through.
Exactly. So it's like, then you really realize the responsibility. Like, everything you say is being heard, even if you don't realize. And it's being analyzed and it's being taken to heart. So it's like, okay, I have to take this seriously. So I kind of put out to people, because I came from a really crazy life. At 15, I left an abusive situation and ended up on the streets because that was the lesser of two evils. And I didn't know I was going to survive. It was middle of winter, and I worked my ass off to make enough to get a place of my own. And, it could have gone any way. And then I never would have thought in a bajillion years that, like, one day people are going to know who the hell I am across the world, and I'm going to have, this reputation and whatever, and get all these great guests that are so legendary. So it was like, okay, let me put this to everybody in a way that they can relate to and understand. If at any point, it's like, okay, I put it to them this way: as a toddler, the average human being falls between 50 and 150 times when learning how to walk, but never once did they ever say, maybe walking is just not for me. So at what point in life did you decide, if something didn't come easy, that maybe I'm just not cut out for it? When did you let the world influence you that's so far-fetched that you can't do what you set out to do just because you don't succeed immediately? Like, when did instant gratification take over? Or other people's opinions of, like, you can't do that. I was told my whole life, you won't be shit. Here I am sitting in front of you, a legend, talking to you. It blows my mind. If I was to buy in, and I did for a long time, until I said, what if? What if I just applied myself? What if I tried to be better than what is put on me? Someone else's limitations were put on me. And if I bought into that, I would never do anything. I could be, with the life I had, by everyone that knows me and they know my crazy life, and they're like, you should be, by all means, a junkie or a drug addict, like a murderer, something, not where you're at today, but you have a, level head. You don't feel sorry for yourself, and you're trying to help people, because it's a choice. It really is. At the end of the day, you could feel sorry for yourself, or you could just try the best you can. I feel. I mean, that's my perspective from where I come from, but other people's experiences are probably different.
Wow. I think you need to send me $100 for this session, and I'm really pleased the way that you've been coming along, Keith. We'll see you next week, okay?
You know,
I feel like I'm your counselor. Where's my notepad? But yeah, no, that's great, man. It's nice to meet you. Uh, that's wonderful. So, what a life growing up in Toronto. Is that what you said?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know,
great town. I love Toronto. So that's fantastic. So you were a fighter, a boxer?
yeah, MMA fighter, so it's kind of a mix of
Is
whatever.
it kind of like a cage fighter
Oh
thing,
yeah,
or?
like UFC. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
All right. One of my daughters lives with a guy, and his brother just got signed to a major, network. Whatever, whatever the federation. I can't remember. And he sent me the message, and I was kind of like, "Oh, okay, that's great. I think." But that is an interesting pathway, no doubt, and it would involve, of course, being be popular celebrity on your level, just as though just not unsimilar to what I've experienced, just playing my guitar and bass and writing and singing and producing all my life, being in bands, touring, whatever. That's basically, what I've done. And I didn't know that what we were just talking earlier about how I was just surprised that you knew who I was. So we take it for granted
right.
to follow our dream, and then what happens is that we end up becoming, on the back end of it, uh, sort of like a celebrity, which is kind of interesting because that's not what I planned to do. I
Right.
just wanted to play, and I wanted to, be on stage. I wanted to meet girls. I wanted to, be cool. I wanted to have a ponytail, into my 60s, and like, not have to, be a conformist.
Right.
Those were all parts of me growing up in the 60s. Now you're obviously a child of what I would appear to be the 80s.
Yes. Absolutely.
So you had the same kind of aspirations, but just in a different generation.
That's right. And it's funny because, like, I was telling Scott about my personal assistant. We were at an event, and my personal assistant said this girl came up to her, not knowing who she is, and not knowing she has any connection to me whatsoever, and freaked out and was like, "Oh, you got to meet this guy. He's so cool. Like, I'm a fan." And he talked to me for like 30 minutes about who he's a fan of. And we literally just talked as fans. He's the greatest dude. Like, he's so down to earth and whatever. You should meet him if you get the chance. She's like, I didn't have the heart to tell her. I'm his personal assistant and one of his best friends ever. And she's like, it's really weird that strangers would come up to me and describe you in such a way. Like, they're such fans of you. And I was like, I try to tell people, don't be surprised. Like, I'm just a dude with a cool job. I'm a human being like all of you, and I just have a cool job. We're all just people. I just really got lucky, and I got to do something cool. That's not a 9 to 5. That's it. Like, I'm not going to treat you like I'm better than you. I'm not above you. I'll talk to you as a fan myself because I'm a fan of what, other people do, even if they're in my industry. It's like, I'm sure you got musicians and things that you're a fan of that.
Yes, we stand on the shoulders of our contemporaries that come before us, and we're
Right.
just blown away that we're ever even to be able to be mentioned in the same sentence with somebody.
Exactly the same conversation where it's like you have your influences. We all do.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's cool. And yeah, the 80s. Yeah, you nailed it. I was born in 83. So,
Yeah, you're a little older than my oldest daughter.
okay. So it's really funny. I was actually talking recently today and the other day about my father had this, the old school, the almost wood panel looking cassette cases with the drawers you pull out, and it's lined with velvet and all that good shit, and you got all the cassettes and whatnot. Of course, what's one in there? Exactly what you do, the best of. The iconic cover with the horse and and I was like, that's cool, man. If you were to tell me back then when I saw that, and I was like, I remember the t-shirt he had in the 80s, wearing that. And I remember seeing in the 90s the tape and whatever. And I was like, man, if you were to tell me back then, one day you're going to make a name for yourself, you're going to go on and do all this crazy shit. And then one day you're going to sit across and talk to somebody involved with that. I'd be like, you're out of your mind. There's no way. There's not a chance. That's not going to happen. But here we are. So that's actually really cool.
Yeah. That's great. Well, I'm happy for you, man.
Life is weird like that, isn't it? You know, and it snowballs. It really goes from, you know, like you were saying, you have your influences, and then before you know it, you're being brought up in the same conversation, and it's like, holy shit. And then, you know, here I am doing the same damn thing, and it just keeps going.
And then you have to get to a point where when you hear that realization, you have to reconstitute it and then back away from it, and you have to learn how to be able to not use that as a trump card, if you will,
Right.
to get out in life. You have to still remain humble, and you still have to not get into the whole thing of like, don't you know who I am? Because I just last week who I am, and I was mentioned the same sentence with my peer, and you know, you kind of go like, no. You're still humble. You're still learning. You're still in awe of the journey in the way that it's unfolding, but you can't let it run. You can't run away with it, and you know, you can't become an asshole. You know what I mean?
Exactly. It's
so easy to become an asshole when that happens, because you just go like, God, somebody just told me it was great. I must be great. You know, it's like, you know, no, you're okay. You're kind of doing okay in one little field, but all the other parts of your life, you're really still a big fuck up, and you need to get it together. You know, and that you have to keep in perspective at all times.
That is exactly what we talked about yesterday and today. It's kind of the theme where I'm like, I don't get it when people let shit go to their head and they become like douchebag of the century, and it's like, really?
Right.
We're all people, dude. We all just have like opportunities, and some of us better opportunities than other. We get to do what we enjoy.
Right.
How the fuck does that make you better than anybody? I don't get that. Like,
right. You just have to make sure that your insecurities, which of course are monumental with most of them,
every time. Yeah.
not to let that become a crutch and an excuse for you to have to sit there and pump up your bicycle inner tube all day long to keep your ego like out here just so you can survive, and then and then end up, you know, turning off everybody else around you.
Exactly.
Something you have to be careful of, which of course is the typical narcissistic, you know, personality trait that somebody we know pretty well right now that we're all trying to deal with in this kind of election in the United States. We're trying to make sure that we don't allow a person like that to become in control and be, you know, like damaged like that. Because when you're damaged like that, you're not able to function normally and govern properly. And that goes for all of us in our own personal, in our own nuclear families, with kids and being a parent and a husband or, you know, whatever, a wife. You have to make sure you keep that in control, because when you become that narcissist where it's all about you all the time and the way you are, then, you know, you turn off everybody around you and they all run away. And even on Facebook and, you know, in social media, I've had to learn to back off a little bit, because, you know, you get your opinion going, and then and the people that look up to you, especially that are your fans, they get a little heartbroken or crestfallen when you're not aligned with their politics and their personal feelings about stuff. And then you make a big, bold statement, and then they're kind of, God, I didn't know Kenny felt like that. I mean, that hurts me. I'm going to have to unfollow him.
Yeah.
Because he bums me out when he talks like that. And so I had to back off a little bit and think about that and go like, well, do I really want to just be totally outspoken, or do I want to be prudent and a little more, you know, careful in the way that I form my words and my phrases and things that I say, so I can still make my point, but not turn people off and make them feel like, God, if I'm not doing what Kenny said, I feel like a piece of shit. So I don't want to be reminded. So I'm just going to go away and disappear. And I've had to take that into consideration recently. My sister just passed away last week. and I went on her computer as we were dealing with her house the next day, and I found a letter she had written to me that she never sent to me. So I was able to download it and read it, and it was nice to be able to get her the way that she was really feeling about me delivered to me that she couldn't tell me when she was here, and it really moved me, and it made me realize we're I mean, when you get to this level, I mean, when I say this level, I mean, when I work for a rock star, I work for the Steve Miller Band, right?
Yeah,
Steve Miller's been around for 50 something years. He's got all these iconic hits and stuff. He's a friend of mine, but still, I'm just an employee when you really boil it down, who works with this guy. But because of the the celebrity of the name of the brand and the logo and everything, people assume that I'm part of all that, and they just want to. They sort of like, you know, I don't want to say idolize, but they sort of, or iconicize, as you were saying earlier, you have a responsibility, like you were saying, and the responsibility is a good word, because then you don't realize how much influence you have, because you're still down low, your own insecurity, saying, well, I'm just some guy, I just have an opinion, I just want to just share it. But it's more than that. If you're like working for an organization like Steve Miller Band, at least in America, you got a lot of influence on people.
yeah.
They look up to you, and they really, really are hanging on all your words. And then you got to be careful with what you're saying, because it's like it can really it can backfire on you.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid. And after reading this letter from my sister, and her being brutally honest, God bless her, was able to make me back off a little bit and go like, maybe she's right. Maybe I need to shut the fuck up a little more, just more listening and less pontificating. And that was a real epiphany for me to read that letter.
Man, first of all, I'm really sorry for your loss.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Seems like
sad. Fortunately, unfortunately, her body was pretty shot, and she was a nurse, and she knew what was going on with her body, and she knew that she didn't want to get a heart transplant, which was something that was offered to her that could have extended her life possibly. But she had other issues with other organs and other parts of her body that she just went, that would be a waste. She says, I'd rather have somebody else have that heart. And so I'm just gonna wait my time out. And when it's time for me to go, it's time for me to go. And she got 10 more months after that decision. And so it was not a surprise. And I know that she really wanted to go, because her body was just like, it's almost like she went to the car rental place and they rented her a Yugo, and it was falling apart on the freeway, and she couldn't get out of the lease, and she wanted to turn that car in really bad. That's kind of the feeling that I was getting from her. And it was like, okay, let's turn in the Yugo. Let's get this lease over with.
I mean,
and so that was kind of the gist of the way it was. It was almost humorous in the sense, because she would come out of a coma in the middle of getting all this morphine and go like, why am I still here? What's going on? Hurry up. And because we don't have euthanasia in California, it was kind of like, nurse, come on in. Whatever's legal,
That's so...
So that being said, it was not as traumatic as it could have been,
That's extremely brave and noble of her, though.
Yeah. Because she was a nurse. I mean, she understood biology. She understood where her body was at. She knew that she was going to, and she didn't want to be hooked up to anything. I mean, her directive was like, no breathing apparatus. She didn't even want an IV, nothing.
That's really noble. And I mean, I know all about loss too. I mean, I just lost my grandfather who raised me just recently. I've lost my son. He was born with a terminal condition, and they gave him 2 weeks to live. He lived to be 2 years old. 9 days after he turned 2, he decided his fight was over. So I know a thing or two about that, and it's like it puts perspective on a lot of stuff. I think that it made
here's my perspective.
Right,
we're not going to be here that long, so we better get it together. Make sure our bodies are running properly, and enjoy the time we're here, and make sure that we aren't an asshole while we're here.
It's so beautiful because I'm glad you said that. In my perspective, it's like the one thing we all have in common. We can dispute everything that doesn't matter all we want, but the one thing we have in common is the clock's ticking, and we don't know when the time is up.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be remembered for? The last thing you did, being a dick, or helping somebody? You know what I mean? It's really that simple, and we can try to slice it however we want. Be like, oh, easy for you to say you're successful, and whatever, you can help people. Dude, helping people does not always require money. Sometimes just not being an asshole,
Or just calling friends up that are single, that are
right?
lonely, and just
You know,
saying, "Hey, how you doing, man? You doing okay?"
right? Seeing a homeless person on the street and treating them with compassion and have a conversation with them like they matter too.
Yeah.
It didn't cost you a dime, and it meant the world to them. Like it's really not hard.
Right.
We could all do better, myself included. Like I've done so much charitable shit, and I could probably still do like leagues better. I lump myself in. I'm not better than anybody. I guarantee I could even up my efforts. It's really that simple. So it's something where it's like we all need to be aware of it, and just kind of the clock's ticking for all of us.
I'm so sorry about your son.
Oh, thank you.
That's a little different. At least my sister got 72 years in.
Yeah, he had a condition we never even heard of until we were hit with a diagnosis. It's so rare. It's called NKH, where it's a genetic. Both parents have to carry the gene.
Mm.
And even then, there's a 75% chance your child will not have it, but he did.
Mm.
And then there's the chance it's not too severe, which means they'll never walk, maybe never talk, but maybe not terminal. But he had like the whole boxes checked of he's going to die. He's going to die early. And that's how it's presented to us is, so just so you know, babies with this condition die early. Like they did not sugarcoat anything. And then they're like, so we suggest you don't even try to treat them, and you can have another one and they probably won't have this. I'm like, we're not talking about replacing an old pair of shoes here. You're talking about my child. So you get real defensive, you know what I mean? And, so I fought tooth and nail. They treated him, and they gave him 2 weeks. He gave me 2 years. So 9 days after he turned 2, things declined, and he decided that he proved his point, essentially, I think. And he went peacefully. So
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, he's the most badass dude I've ever known, in my view, and I'm grateful.
He's great.
He's not suffering. I mean, that's
the main thing. That's the main thing is that I mean, we were just all in agony for my sister who was suffering, and so we were, it was weird to be able to go to a hospital, when you're all there and as a family, and normally you're planning for them to get well. But in this case, we were trying to go with her plan, which was to just all agree that it was time for her to cross over and make her transition. And that's what she wanted. So it was an interesting dynamic, which was very strange. I'd never been through anything like that before.
Right. It's just, you want peace.
Right.
For them, no matter what form that comes in. And yeah, I get that.
I get peace when I play my guitar and my bass, and I just like get with the rhythm section, and I did a recording session the other day with a live group where we actually all played together at the same time. I hadn't done that in quite a while. Of course, that was what I did mainly in the 70s and 80s, was to be a studio session player. So it was so fun to do that. And it was such a precious moment in time that I even felt bad taking pay for it. I wanted to pay the client, for letting me do it. But yeah, it was really cool. But that's what saved me is Vietnam War. I was taking acid. I was thinking suicide. I was thinking all that stuff, and then music came along and became my life force that allowed me to hang on to a set of handlebars, like on a motorcycle or a chopper. You just want to grab on and hold on. And it's like, that's what music did for me. It made me feel as though I could stay here and enjoy this real sacred communication between me and other humans, that it made it all worthwhile. So that's what saved me. It was going in the bedroom and practicing and, aping Hendrix and Jeff Beck and, Clapton. And, it was like, that was my thing, and it saved my life. So that's the beauty of art in music. I mean, I'm sure sculptors and painters feel the same. Singers, opera singers, classical musicians. I mean, all of them get into that moment, where their DMT is getting unlocked in their pituitary gland, and they roll their eyes back and they go into this other world, and it's just like, it is an incredibly addictive and heavenly kind of holy experience. So that's what saved me.
I feel like music has that ability, whether you're on either side of the spectrum as a fan or the musician, it's that common ground.
Right.
You could want to end it today and then hear a certain song where it's like somebody gets it. And now I'm good. I don't need to do it because someone gets it and they became extremely successful, even though they felt the way I do. There's hope. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's so fucking important.
What are some of the groups that you really enjoyed in the 80s when you were coming up?
Oh, man, I love
that gave you solace and comfort.
Man, in the 80s, as a kid, I had such a fucked up life that, music was such a big deal to me. And
that's what I'm saying. It's like, was it Metallica? Was it...
It was literally everything, because my uncles and all them were not that much older when I was born. They were teenagers and going into their 20s. So it was everything from Steve Miller to Metallica to U2 to Billy Idol to whatever the mood fit. Supertramp, and Led Zeppelin, and it was just this vast. So like
you were getting music influences from your uncles and brother. Did you say it a brother?
No, my uncles, my father.
Okay, so kind of an older generation. You were getting into some of the golden era stuff from the 70s.
Right. So it was amazing that I, to this day, I love it. You know what I mean? It's such an eclectic, and it's like the newer shit. I'm like, this sucks, and Kenny laughed because we talked about that, where I said, like, my oldest son now is 18. And I said, man, when I was, 12, 13, 14, I was always like, I am not going to be that dude that says what my kid's listening to is trash. And be that old guy. And then I'm like, and then the newer shit comes. I'm like, this sucks, dude. And I'm like, and then it's like, am I getting old? Or is it just legitimately fucking like there's no substance, whatever, like what?
You have to go out and you have to look, and it's there.
It is there.
It gets what gets promoted, though, may not be the thing that's there that's good. You just have to go mine for it. You have to go find the vein and go find it. I wasn't even really a very big fan of rap music, but when I went to go see Hamilton on Broadway with the original cast, I was turning over and looking at my wife and going, damn, this is really a great art form to get this point across of this story of all this information that we got to get to find out about the history of the United States. What better way to get all that information was to get it at high speed as like a MIDI bulk dump. It was like it had to come in fast with a lot of stuff to really, really enhance all the information that we needed. And what better way to do it is the machine gunning of rap. Right. And I really, really embraced it at that point. I didn't go out and buy a bunch of rap records, but I really embraced the art. I understood it,
It's funny how music ties into memories too, whereas like I remember in the 80s just being this little kid and we had this barbecue with like charcoal. I'm a huge charcoal guy and I've always been. And I remember the smell of charcoal and the radio playing with Rod Stewart coming on. So now every time I smell charcoal, it's like I remind myself of like Rod Stewart playing. So now I'm a fan of Rod Stewart because he was so distinct. I love CCR. I love, all this shit. And it's like, man, it's memories. The second I hear it, I'm like, I'm back in a good time when everything was just no stress. No, my grandparents raised me. So like, they were heavy into, I remember busting out this little tiny record player, the vinyls of Johnny Cash. And I was like, that I grew up with now. You know what I mean? So anytime I hear Johnny Cash, I'm like, yeah, buddy, it's a good place.
So yeah, you really have a wide, diversified
Right.
musical taste. I mean, you're going all the way across the board. It's wild.
It's a trip. And then, so like anything newer from like, say, 99 until now that I am into, they were heavily influenced by the same type of, influences, and maybe even stuff before my time that I haven't heard a whole ton of. And so like it's there, even if they're heavier or whatever, the influence, they'll go off and they'll do other things, like Corey Taylor, for example. He's got this array of bands. Like he's now doing his own solo stuff because there's nothing he could do solo wise that are his influences that fit either band. One's metal, one's more hard rock, and then it's like, man, he's got his country influences like Johnny Cash and things like that, and stuff that just doesn't fit either band. So he's like, now I got to work 24/7 to kind of get that out where it fits, and there's like a whole array of stuff. And then
What are the bands that he's involved with? Corey, what's his last name?
Corey Taylor, so Slipknot.
Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
See, now I don't know who that is.
Right, and he's so like, yeah, so he's so huge. Like Slipknot's a huge metal band.
Slipknot. So he was in that band?
Yeah, he's a singer. So
I met Slipknot.
Yeah,
Okay.
They wear masks, whatever. He's the singer.
Right.
Then there's Stone Sour, which is, more rock based, not metal, not heavy, more melodic. But now he's doing his own solo stuff where there's country influence, there's
really,
softer rock influence, just things that don't fit either band. Because
I was going to say that's a really wide bunch of styles. I mean, to go from Slipknot to Johnny Cash, are you kidding me?
Right, and it's so eclectic. And his grandmother also raised him, so he remembers the.
You mentioned that. You mentioned that as a theme. My father was raised by his grandfather, so I understand the dynamics of how that works.
Right,
it makes sense. It's very villagey. It's very tribal,
extreme,
and it really it makes sense because I never had a son. I have 3 daughters, and I think I was not permitted to have a son because I think I might have just been an awful father to a son. I don't know. It's possible I might have been okay. Maybe now I could have had one, but I'm a grandfather age now, so that makes sense. See, I could be a better father now to a son as a grandfather than I would have been as a regular dad in my 40s. You know what I mean? So, because even my daughters, who I love dearly, even they kick my ass on a regular basis, about all the things that I made mistakes with and did wrong, and I didn't have a manual. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a young father. But it's funny you mentioned this theme because my father was raised by his grandfather, and it really saved his life. It really did. Because his father and him they couldn't connect. They just couldn't.
That's just it. And my father, he was 22 when I was born. I don't remember him.
Pretty young.
Yeah, I don't remember him being around much, and it's not a slight against him. It's just he was off working his ass off. He worked at the same place my grandfather did, but then he's off dating. He wasn't prepared to be a father.
He was a kid. A kid.
And, so my grandfather was there to kind of teach me the old school way of things. Waste not, want none. If something's broke, you fix it. You don't just try to toss it and replace it.
Right.
All the important shit.
It's almost like parents shouldn't even really have kids until they're after 40. Because then they have a little world wisdom that they can share with their kids. Up until then, they're still a work in progress. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Right.
So, to have a child and then to be a fuck up trying to find yourself, it just messes everything up. So it's like it's something that is a strange conundrum when when we talk about birth control, we talk about abortion, we talk about all these different things that when you really boil down why they exist, you can understand that it is actually, you know, a benefit and more helpful to the community if we stop, you know, young people from having children early and wait till they're quite a bit older before they would even take that responsibility, which would make them a better parent, which would make a better child, which would make a better citizen and make a better state, country, whatever you want to call it. The whole thing seems to be out of whack because people have kids too early.
Yeah. And we don't all have the luxury of having grandparents from a great time that step up and take that responsibility. Never once made me feel like a burden or like it would be a lot easier on us if you weren't here. You know?
Right, because he didn't take it personally. It wasn't a reflection on his ego and his, you know, his progeny wasn't an extension of his persona and, you know, that whole ego thing. You have to back off from that. You have to realize that, you know, your child is not an extension of you. It is an individual serial number that's come across the universe that's just been given permission to appear and become an individual on their own. All you can do is enhance that with the wisdom and the knowledge that you gain over time, but you're not really expecting that child to just be like another appendage for you. You know, they're a completely separate individual that has their own path, their own journey, and all you can do is just kind of give them your wisdom that you've learned. And unless you've lived a little, you won't have any wisdom to share.
That's
you
right.
know,
And
you got to live a little. You know, you got to have some experience. And it's interesting that you bring up that because I don't think about that often. But because we just went through all the photos and the family history last week when my sister passed, you know, I thought about my father a lot. And I thought about, you know, how he got better as he got older, and he and I could communicate better as he got into his retirement years. He and I got along pretty good, you know. But it took that long to be able to for him to see my way and for me to see his way.
Right. And I mean, I never knew my mother, so you know, from 10 months old on. So it was like, you know, I don't have that side of things. I don't know that half of myself. And then I got a child and it's like, man, and now he's a grown, you know, he's 18 and I'm like, all I can give you is my experience.
He's not grown, but he's older.
Right. Like he's still getting there. And
right.
Like, you know, I said, when I was 15, I had to grow. Hell, when I was 6, I had to like grow faster because I, you know, my father was just, he had a temper. Life didn't go his way. So then abuse comes into things. I had to grow up pretty damn fast. So
and then you had a short fuse, and then that helped you become a great fighter because you were beating your way out of a, you know,
right, and
cocoon that you were trapped in that you wanted to fly. Yeah. You wanted to elevate, and the only way you could do was to punch your way out of the punching bag. And so it only makes sense that you would have gone into that profession because it gives you that extra fire that you can't teach.
And it's really weird for me because I never want to hurt anybody.
Mike Tyson notwithstanding, you know.
Right, and for me, it's like I never want to hurt anybody. I hate it. And for me, it was more. It made sense because like I got to a point at an early age where I don't feel pain anymore. But for me, it was more art was my escape at 6 years old. And then people were like, dude.
Really?
Yeah, people were like, because it helped me forget everything that's going on around me.
You say art is the drawing part that goes into the tattoo part of your life.
Right. So
you were creating sculpture and patterns and
right. I was drawing stuff. And now people are like, dude, why aren't you doing this for a living? I'm like, because I don't want to make that a job. I want to enjoy it.
Interesting you mentioned that too, because that's another thing that I've realized in my older years is that I almost enjoy music more when it's a hobby,
right,
and not a living, you know. And unfortunately, I got in so deep that it's been hard to escape that.
Right.
I haven't found anything else that's as satisfying as playing music that I could do for a living. But if I could, I would. And I think one of them is writing novels, which I have been doing. I actually have a novel on Amazon right now that was self-published. It's doing very well just by word of mouth. And my father was a writer too. I could become a writer and I could make music my hobby, and I think I would be a happier person.
Right. You know,
I wouldn't give up music, but I would make it a real serious hobby.
That's the crazy thing too, is I'm sure you've experienced this, where people think because you can do a specific thing, it's like, do this for me now. It's like, okay, but who says I want to? Like with art, like I can't just go all the damn time. When the mood hits, I know I have to get it out of my system and my best work comes out. If I'm not in the mood and I try to force it, it's trash.
Of course.
It'll look like a third grader did it.
Again, it's just like we were talking about earlier about how you're just the vessel, and
Right.
the motivation and it just comes through you, and you're just like the delivery system of a piece of art that already exists out here in the cosmos, but it hasn't been put into media yet. And so Keith now is now going to take that piece of art, but it's been floating around. It's already conceptualized the way you already see it, the colors, the lighting. It's there, but it just hasn't been put down yet. You're just the delivery system that puts it into reality. You're just the sculptor, the creator for the moment. But when you back away from it, you go like, how in the hell did I do that?
Right.
Where did that come from? That's pretty cool.
Right.
I know I couldn't have come up with that.
Right. And for me, it'll be like, I'll do like maybe 3 large pieces, and then that's where I gas out. So then if I try after that, because I'm still in the mood to go, it just comes out like garbage. And I'm like, where to go?
Yeah.
Runs out. It's like,
Well, most of the hit records that have happened, when you interview the people that did it, they will say it usually would happen within 15, 20 minutes.
right. Because it's all.
Those are the hit records that happen. It just the whole vision, the whole sound. Not to say that there hasn't been people that have gone into the studio and spent months and months and months working on a hit record, and it still becomes a hit. But the ones that are really come easy, that are the ones that are just, Steve Miller wrote the lyrics to Joker in 20 minutes, and he wrote the lyrics to Abracadabra in about 20 minutes, from what I understand. I mean, after talking to him about that. But other songs, he took a little more time. At Fly Like an Eagle, he started in 73. He didn't finish that till 76, 77.
Wow.
Took 4 years.
And, at the end of the day, before I have to wrap this up because I got the next. God, I hate schedules.
Are you talking about pinching a loaf?
Right. It's like,
well, you talking about shit you got to do.
The next guest, I mean, is at 9 p.m. I'm at 8:56. Fuck. But to your point, like, what you're saying earlier, it's like you discredit yourself in a way so much, but it's like it's a team effort, because he may have written some great shit, but at the end of the day, you played such a part. It's like every bit of it, you all had your parts that are so iconic that it wouldn't be the same without you. And, I love that humbleness of like, I'm just a piece of it. What? Nah, man, you had, like, when I hear you play, I'm like, I know who that is.
Right. You're talking about the touring band.
Yeah. So I mean, it all
that's cool. That's a different entity than the creative thing in the studio, but I understand what you're saying.
It's still like you mattered so much and created so many memories for people. I love the humble, aspect, but to sell yourself short, kind of, it's almost like a disservice to yourself as well.
Right.
So
I appreciate that. But again, I have to keep perspective, because most of the hits that Steve wrote were done before I even met him. The only album that I worked on that I co-wrote and co-produced was Abracadabra, which was in '82.
I mean, and still, it's like so many of us can say, but was I a part of that? I can't say that.
Yeah, but I mean, you weren't destined to be that. You're destined to be something else.
But if you were, that's a credit to you, I think, as a person. Yeah. So I think you deserve a lot more than you give yourself. But I love that humble, attitude too. So.
Well, if anybody wants to learn more about me, they can go to kennyleelewis.com, which is a website. SteveMillerBand.com is more about Steve. I'm a presence on there, but you'd learn more on my side. And then I have a couple bands. I have a band called Barflies with a Z, music.com. And then Friends, FERNZ, music, .com, and that's a rock band that I do right here locally. But this book I talked about, which is called Skeleton Dolls, Children of the Tower, is available on Amazon. It's been out for quite a few years. It's been getting great reviews. I wrote a sequel to it, which I'm going to sell as a stand-up new book, which is not out yet. But if you'd like to get the first book, just go to Amazon, check it out. It's in Kindle and hardback, and it's been getting a great review because I'd love to become a novelist and do music as a hobby, as I said.
Absolutely. I wouldn't, you know. And then
I'm working on a YouTube channel where I'll be doing master classes, lessons, maybe a cooking channel, part of it, and maybe a little philosophy. Who knows? But it'll be kind of like what Lee Sklar has been doing. If you know Lee, he's
going to be on the show actually.
He's just playing bass along with the hits that he played on and just talking shit, and he's getting 150,000 subscribers. You know, God bless him. You know, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to get a third of that. You know, and keep moving. You know.
Yeah, he's going to be on the show in the coming weeks, actually. So
he's a great guy. He's a good friend. We play together quite a bit.
That's awesome, man. I'm so glad to have you. I mean, it's been.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, this is the most unusual, Zoom interview I've ever done because it was like. I learned more about you than I did about myself, which is good, which is the way it should be. And I'm really glad that you had me on, and you sound like you're doing a wonderful thing. Are you I noticed that you're in this studio with tats. Are you still involved in the tattoo industry?
I've kind of gotten out of it because it's a weird industry where everybody kind of, all of a sudden you got like 90 some best friends and, everybody wants something for nothing. And, it's like, man. Wow. Takes the fun of it. And I'm also someone that, again, with art, it's like I want to do something because I enjoy it and I'm in the mood to do it. When you tell me this is what I want, this is how it has to be, and it's like
you don't necessarily want your canvas to be someone's epidermis.
Right. It's such a chore sometimes. And sometimes it's a blast. Other times it's like I really don't feel like doing this. And I don't want to risk my something not being my best work being on someone permanently. So I was like, maybe this is not for me.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, that's great. Well, that's good to know. You've got a branding and an image, but you're a man of many facets, as we say.
It's weird. I'd love to have you back on anytime, man.
Okay, let me know.
Yeah. If you got something to promote or you just want.
Well, I'm gonna, like I said, once I get the YouTube channel up and running, and I have daily entries on there, then it'll actually be a consistent thing that people could come and enjoy rather than just once in a while. I've got to turn it into a thing. It's got to become a thing. It's almost like a TV station. You got to have consistency and you got to have product.
I know I got a channel. It's really weird. I don't keep up with it like I should because it's kind of getting crazy now with YouTube. They kind of suppress your views. They bullshit you. If you open 2 tabs, it'll show you like this huge number and then much less because they're trying to like downplay. Because then they get to keep the advertising budget.
Right. They don't want you to push the monetization button because they don't want to write a check.
Right. So I'm like, I don't focus too much on it. But
if you overwhelm them with numbers, then it's undeniable.
Right. So I still.
Lee didn't even plan to do it. It just happened because of who he is.
Right.
And he's like, God, man, I'm getting all these ad banners. I'm getting checks. It's like, what the hell's going on? This is wild. Anyway.
I contribute to it, but I don't focus on it. It is what it is.
Vaya con Dios, Keith.
Yeah, man. Have a good one. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks to Eileen for hooking us up.
Absolutely. She's awesome, isn't she?
Yeah, I haven't met her yet, but we just met just on emails and stuff.
Kenny says a lot of good things.
Hopefully we'll press the flesh at some point.
Hell yeah. All right, thanks, brother. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. All right, brother. Well, I guess sayonara.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
So that, my friends, was Kenny Lee Lewis. Hilarious guy. We got along immediately, busting each other's balls a little bit, and just had a good conversation about how ego can be something like you can't let it get the better of you, and I think a lot of people struggle with that. So it's a pretty cool conversation, man, and it was just a really cool time talking to him. He's super chill, And I look forward to having him back on the show. And my next guest is going to be equally cool. Trust me, it was a great show. Stephen Perkins, so check that out too. In the meantime, man, thanks for checking out the show, and I will catch your asses later. Remember, stay humble, and just bust ass and do what you do. And keep shooting for what you want to do in life. Don't settle for what is expected, just because something is traditional. If it's soul sucking, it's not worth it, man. So keep trying to do what it is you want to do, and eventually you'll make it. I'll catch your asses later, man.
A destruction of the fear in us. I have yet to know what I